The children's home is hope.
A place where families get their lives put back together.
It is a commitment. It is a family.
The children's home is a place where we're able to work together to try to help these kids to have a productive and a happy life.
It's home to me.
Historically, the Children's Home started 14 years before Abraham Lincoln became President of the United States. And the story is that a group of women from 5 area churches got together in 1847 to try to think about what they would do to support the county. And they finally decided to focus on children and women who were out of service. And they were incorporated in 1852 as the Poughkeepsie Orphan House and Home of the Friendless, and that's how we got our start.
They were the wives of prominent men in the community. They were well educated, but the tradition was to not work. The tradition was to volunteer. So they volunteered here. Probably one of the best things ever happened to the Children's Home. They had a commitment to making this a really nice place for kids.
That has continued. Not that it's all women anymore, but that it's more than just a commitment. It is like a passion for making sure that kids are taken care of who need it.
Everybody who works here, every single person, has the opportunity to make relationships with these kids. Positive interactions are the thing that most powerfully changes the brain.
When I was 13, I went to the group home that they have off campus grounds, and that's where I met this guy, Julius. He's a crucial person that I am today, of trying to stay focused and understanding that how you handle yourself is what determines the man you are. I actually named my youngest son after him. His name is Julius. That's right there. But he really impacted my life a lot. And honestly, I'm not sure what kind of a man I would be if our paths never crossed. So.
From 1857 on, they just did the work of an orphanage. You think of an orphan, you think of a child without a family. But lots of kids here had families of some kind. Families that were broken by disease or poverty. Kids came here for short periods of time while families tried to recover. It's only an early respite model, which is something they're talking about now, of having short-term respite kind of care for children. When people adopted children or children were placed with them, they did require that the family that had the child write a letter every year and tell them how the child was doing. So they had a real commitment to the children. I think it's a value that we carry through today. If you talk to anybody here, they're going to put the kids right in the center of what we do.
I'm coming back now, seeing familiar faces, you know that these people were here they grew up here. They were here when I was here, and they're still here. It's not a paycheck thing. This is their lifestyle. This is what they do. So, like Jay McGinnis, he, so many projects being done with him, working on all these trails. It's amazing,
One of the things that I've realized over the years is that a lot of the kids that we get, it comes down to they have a sense of powerlessness. They don't feel they have any ability to affect the world around them. That all these bad things happen to them, and they sort of succumb to that after a while, and they just sort of give up to a certain degree. And so I like to go out, and it really is creativity from a certain viewpoint, but it's really more empowering them to feel good about themselves. And creativity is one way to do that. When we get them over at the log cabin and they're doing a wood burning and they're really proud of it and they're showing it off when they're done, I think it's really helpful to be able to do that. And we try to broaden that out to other activities, not just arts and crafts, but the talent show, the Black History program, the gardens that we're doing. We have a nature trail that we work on. And anytime we can get them into doing things where they feel good about themselves and they're saying, ooh, I'm making a difference in the world, I think it's very, very helpful.
So they moved here, 1920. A lot of community support, and it's been the history of the children's homes have tremendous community support. From around 1920 to 1952, really functioned as an orphanage. But in the early 50s, New York State started to experiment with this notion that children could have mental health problems. Margaret Race, who was our executive director, and Margaret came on in 1937, and I think she was the executive director for 37 years. She was a smart lady. She must have been paying attention to this because in 1952, the Children's Home hired its first social worker. So she was like right in tune with that, what was going on in the field. 1952, we started to become a treatment center, and that's really what happened over the next 70 years almost now, right?
When I first got there, I remember I was very to myself for the first week, and then I had this mental breakdown. I had actually opened up about a sexual assault that had happened to me visiting my grandparents, and from there I think they saw I don't know if they saw something in me or if they just were doing their job, but they put me in therapy. They put me in art therapy, regular therapy. They put me in every activity you can think of just to keep me going. And I think they saw that, I was at my end. They reminded me that it isn't forever. And I was assigned Dr. Crenshaw as my therapist. And he told me, why don't I start poetry? So I did. So they helped me find, my muse and find something to let everything that I was holding in for my whole life out.
These are families that are in the survival mode, just trying to make it through another day. Kids who've experienced all of this trauma and hardship, they walk around in the world with a very different neural system than most of us.
A couple of years ago, we had this one youth come back to the children's home, and he brought his wife and his daughter, and he wanted to show them where he grew up. And this kid said to me, he said, Karen, I was a bad kid. And I said to him, you were not a bad kid. I said, you know what? You had a lot that you had to deal with. That was not your choice. You were far from a bad kid.
We don't believe that one size fits all. Some of our youth are able to take advantage of art therapy. Music is very popular. The creative arts have proved to be a way that kids can express themselves when they simply have no words for what they've experienced. Some of the kids enjoy horseback riding.
My friend here is Ace. Ace is one of our facility dogs here at Children's Home. He's one of 3. Ace's job here is he works with the children. He'll sit in on therapy sessions. I've had youth come to my office and read to him. There was a time where they would write letters to Ace and put them in Ace's mailbox, and Ace would respond back. They help them to feel less anxious, less sad. They'll say that, Ace or being with any of the other facility dogs, they feel loved by the dogs.
And of course we have the more traditional therapies that can take place on an individual, group and family basis.
Even after leaving the Children's Home Poughkeepsie, fun fact, I was sent to my grandmother's house on my father's side, and I called and I said, can I come back? I didn't want to leave. I cried because I had built such a connection with everybody, especially Dr. C. A lot of who I am today is because of him.
The move to cut into residential was already underway when I came here. When I got here, I started looking for these opportunities to serve different populations. So the SILP program, Supervised Independent Living, was the first thing that we spearheaded. And then a couple of years later, we opened a group emergency foster care program, which is a shelter program. We saw a shift in who we were serving, and we pretty aggressively looked for opportunities to serve different populations. 2 years ago, there were no kids on this campus. There were no kids on this campus for the first time in 100 and something years. And it was eerie to be here. It's an empty campus. But at the same time, another opportunity came up for us, which was working with the unaccompanied minors from Central America.
The children's home has morphed into a community-based, federally based, children coming from the international borders. We have a lovely campus here in Poughkeepsie, but it's a small microcosm almost of the impact of the work that we're doing. We have a pretty broad reach now, and the board is looking at that as a responsibility. We're looking at programs that can support this new awakening that we're having, this idea that we are not a campus-based program anymore. You know, it's not all here, that there's a lot of impact and difference we could make in our broader community.
We had one girl who wrote a letter to the home and said she really appreciated what everybody had done. And she said something that really stuck with me, and it actually gets me emotional still just thinking about it. She said, "You made me see the beauty in life, even though my life was in chaos at the time." And to me, that's basically what we're really trying to do.
February 15th of this year, I gave birth to a beautiful boy. When I found out I was pregnant, I wanted to break the generational trauma. I wanted to, be a different parent from what I've seen through my family and even through my husband's family. So we went to therapy, and even now I'm still in therapy, but we worked out a lot of things, and now I can say I'm confident in being a parent. My whole life I've had this hole, and he's filled it. So very blessed. He's very beautiful, and he has so much personality already, so I can't wait to see, the man that he becomes in the future.